Hey guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben. In today's podcast, I would like to talk about how do we spend time when there is no new Star Wars content. We're all eagerly anticipating for the new Kenobi show. May 25th couldn't be here soon enough. I know all of us diehard Star Wars fans, we want the day to be today. We want to start watching it right now. But in the meantime, what do we do? How do we pass time in anticipation for the new, hopefully great Star Wars content? Guys, I'm going to give you 4 tips of what I personally do to enjoy my time while we're waiting for new Star Wars shows like Kenobi, and I would also like to compare notes with you. Drop some comments in the video section below. Let me know how you pass your free time. Do you keep up with your Star Wars books, your readings? What do you generally do? Do you go to something completely different, other franchises like Marvelverse or DC Comics that you do? I'd be very curious to hear about this. Anyway, without further ado, let's get to our 4 main tips that I'm going to give you guys today. And as always, I always appreciate your support, guys. If you enjoy my podcast, please consider subscribing, hit that bell button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys with my future podcast where I bring more meaningful Star Wars topics to discuss about. Without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, I got to think hard on this. What do we do in between? What could possibly a Star Wars fan do? Oh yeah, reading Star Wars books. There's plenty of content to check out, guys. You got Star Wars Legends books, you got Star Wars Canon books, you got audiobooks, you got comic books. There's tons amount of content to check out. But some of you may ask, hey, hold on a second, Ben. I don't know any about this Star Wars Expanded Universe stuff, this new canon, old canon. What's what? I'm confused. I don't even know where to begin, so forget all this stuff. Well, just for this occasion, I'm going to drop the video link in the comment section below where I actually composited my highest recommendation books from both Legends and Canons comprehensively, 30 plus books where specifically, guys, you should begin and why those are specifically good books to begin with. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to give you very abbreviated version of it. So where to begin? Check out the latest and greatest. You know, a lot of people are enjoying the High Republic. Me, my friend Josh from Star Wars On High, Jimmy from Star Wars Complete. We always talk about this. If you go to YouTube and check out the High Republic book reviews, you will generally find that people who actually read this stuff are liking them. But sometimes you might say, you know what, I'm not feeling Star Wars serious. You know, I don't know where to begin. This could be a little bit daunting for me. There's just so much stuff. I constantly hear it from the fans. You know what you could do? Instead of reading a series of books, whether it's old or new Star Wars, you could pick up something that's independent, like this, Star Wars Odyssey, an epic poem. This is actually quite whimsical and very interesting. It's a completely standalone book, which covers the original trilogy. And the thing is, you don't need any prior knowledge. You don't need any requirement to know about any Star Wars Expanded Universe. It's literally pick up and read kind of stuff. Another thing I want to mention here is something like this. I don't know. The Shakespearean version of Star Wars books, they have novelizations of every single Star Wars movie. You have the prequel trilogies, the original books, and the sequels. These are whimsical, these are funny, these are really, really clever. They're written by a gentleman who is a Shakespearean scholar. So rest assured, when you read these books, they literally feel like you're reading Shakespeare. They're just so goofy and funny. I can't recommend them highly enough, guys. So there you go. You might have something that it's not very daunting. It's not very confusing. It's a beginner level. If you might say that, hold on a second, I don't want to read a full book. I just don't have time to commit. I'm in college. You know, I have full work days. I just don't have the time. I have kids. You might have a couple of different reasons why you can't do that. Well, still, you got something like this. Check out the Star Wars Fiction Collection. These are actually short stories. They're full of interesting illustrations from way back in the day, from Star Wars Legends. And you get to enjoy really digestible short stories. You know, that's a really excellent point to begin. And guys, I would say don't fret and don't feel intimidated. There might be a character name or a ship name or certain terminologies that you don't understand. It's all cool. You gotta all start somewhere, right? Again, for somebody who's like, hey, Ben, you know what? I kind of checked out the new material. I'm up to date with my High Republic. You know, I'm reading Kevin Scott novels and so forth. Where else is there to go? Well, remember that video that I mentioned of 30 plus book recommendations? I'm just going to squeeze those in right away right now, guys. Just for me, it's an opportunity to show off my beautiful collection, but also you can't have a Star Wars discussion without these. Timothy Zahn, Original Throne Trilogy. You know, in the interim, May 25th is quite away from now. I think it's plenty of time, even for most casual reader to complete at least one book in the series. You pick up a book, a Star Wars classic. If you don't trust my word for it, so that it's specifically the Throne trilogy that you should read, check out Google other, resources. Check out Goodreads, what people are saying are good books to start with. Again, if you guys are interested, check out the video link in the section below where I go through step by step and give you those recommendations based on what I consider is good. I've been reading these books over for 20 years. So anyway, books are a very good start, but there's something else we could check out in terms of reading if even a single book feels intimidating to you guys. Okay, here we go. A book, even a short story, sometimes might feel intimidating. There's just too much to read, or you want something that is more easily digestible and it's easily readable. Well, comic books. That's another great idea, guys. You could go from modern Marvel comic books, or you could check out something from the older days of the Dark Horse era, like the famous Dark Empire trilogy. The thing is, some of you might say, well, Ben, you're holding a physical copy. It's actually not available anymore. This is like a collector item. Well, guess what? You could get these on Amazon Prime, on all of these digital platforms where you could purchase comic books. And that's it. It's easily available. You could read it on your tablet. You could read it on your smartphone. The access is right there, right before your hands, guys. All you have to do is go to all of these e-shops, check them out, and pick up some Star Wars comic books. Believe it or not, if you have been hesitating up to this point, comic books are some of the coolest Star Wars stories and characters you will ever check out. I always talk about Star Wars novels. I review Star Wars comic books when I can. I think those are really, really easy to get into. Those are very, very easy for you guys to find your favorite characters or eras. And while you're waiting for the next Star Wars show, oh my God, I'm waiting for the Bad Batch Season 2. Personally, I'm a huge fan, but it's going to be a while. You know what? You could check out Star Wars comic books that deal with that era, with Clone Wars, around the era of the Order 66, past that time, the Dark Ages, the Jedi Purge, when Darth Vader goes all crazy and starts destroying all the Jedi. There's comic book material on that. So if you don't feel like you want to read a Star Wars book, my recommendation is you always could go to illustrated Star Wars comic books. You get pretty pictures, you get beautiful artists. They're very quick reads, and they're just pretty enjoyable. And you don't have to start with something that is this big, this intimidating. There's plenty of Star Wars comic books which are only 4 or 5 or 6 issues long. For example, for those of you who are fans of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order video game, it came out on Xbox and PlayStation 4 and 5. That particular video game has an extended storyline that takes place in the comic book. I'll try to throw the picture in this video so you could see what it looks like. Jedi Fallen Order. I believe it was only 5 or 6 issues. I actually reviewed it here on my channel. Brilliant stuff. It's not a long read. And you know what? You don't even need to play the video game to check out that particular story. Just do a little bit of your own research, see what stories require you to read something or not. Or if you're completely lost, actually drop me a question in this video section below. I'll do my best to answer all of you guys. Anyway, we covered books, we covered comic books. That's one big tip. Let's keep it moving. Okay, guys, I recognize that some of you don't even have the time to read. I understand it. Everybody's, handling their adult life business. It's, sometimes it's very daunting. You just don't have the time to pop up a book and start reading, spending time on that. But, if your eyes are too busy doing things, you could listen, right? Star Wars audiobooks. Every time you hit the gym, you go outside for a jog, you're doing some kind of mundane activities at work which don't require a lot of attention. Put on some headphones, check out some audiobooks. But before we get to Star Wars audiobooks, I would like to mention something briefly to you guys. I'm understanding that not a lot of Star Wars fans know the existence of Star Wars radio dramas. That's right. After the original Star Wars movies were over, the original trilogy came out, in 1981, we were graced with a Star Wars radio drama that was actually played over the course of extended period of time on radio called A New Hope, which is obviously an adaptation of the original film. But the golden jewel of that particular radio drama is that it extends the movie. It introduces a lot of scenes which are not in the actual films. So if you guys say oh, you know what, how I spend my time while I wait for the next Star Wars thing, I just rewatched the old stuff. Well, how about you check out this audio version where you get the story that you thought you knew, plus you get other material there which makes the story so much more interesting and engaging and enhances the world. It builds the world a lot more. Give you an example where Leia goes on her mercy missions in those radio dramas. Those scenes have been extended, and we actually see them in Star Wars Rebels shows. Remember that episode where Leia Organa meets Ezra Bridger, and together they go on this mission? That is actually taken from the radio drama. Anyway, that was in 1981. In 1983, they released a follow-up radio drama called The Empire Strikes Back. Obviously, the same thing, same deal, adaptation of the second movie. And once again, we get these extended scenes which just elevate the tension. Actually, I listened to the second radio drama quite recently. It's been a long period of time until I, got to it, because I only listened to the first radio drama up to this point. When I checked out the second one, I'm like, oh man, it makes the rebel cause so much more justified and so much more interesting and tense. Boy, man, how come I didn't listen to it before? And I'll make a confession, guys. Here I am recommending Star Wars radio dramas, but I actually have not completed my listen to the Return of the Jedi, which actually came out much later in 1996. Anyway, you get the idea. I think any Star Wars fan would enjoy them because, A, it's easy to get into. All you have to do is put a pair of headphones. Voila, you got it. You start listening to it. And they give you something that you have not experienced before. It is not like rewatching your favorite Star Wars movies all over again. They have scenes in there which feel right at home with the rest of the saga, and they give you more insight into Star Wars. But we didn't just talk about Star Wars radio dramas. We're also here to talk about Star Wars audiobooks. Guys, I'm a purist. I'm the type of guy who has been raised reading literature through books, conventional way, right? My friend Josh from Star Wars on High, I'll drop the link to his video channel. Again, he has exceptional, awesome Star Wars channel. He knows what he's talking about. He is the one who put me up with listening to Star Wars audiobooks, because he commutes to work. He says, Ben, look, I don't have the time to dedicate to actually opening up physical or digital books. I got to listen to stuff. I'm like, okay, I get it. I respect that. I'm not going to knock a guy who tries to go about enjoying his Star Wars in the way that he feels most comfortable. And he said, Ben, you know what? Do me a favor. Just check out at least one Star Wars audiobook. And I said, you know what, Josh? Okay, let's do this. I'm going to check out a Star Wars Dooku Jedi Lost, and then I'm going to try to follow up with Tempest Runner, which the second book is based on the High Republic content, and Dooku Jedi Lost obviously is based on Count Dooku when he was still in the Jedi Order. It actually encompasses his entire life, from childhood to teenage years to how he abandons the Jedi Order. Both were written by Kevin Scott, but here's the thing. Both of these titles that I mentioned, both Tempest Runner and Dooku Jedi Lost, those were very interesting projects because they were specifically developed for audiobooks. They are full, I would say, radio dramas, because each one features a full cast, which is not typical of audiobooks. It has like a lot of following sound effects from Star Wars that you guys will all recognize, the rousing music, a musical score. When you listen to them, honestly, it almost feels like watching a Star Wars movie minus the picture. So if you're here sitting like, oh man, it's going to be such a long time till we get more Star Wars content, where else can I go? I don't want to read a full book. Dooku Jedi Lost. And once again, guys, I'm just going to sprinkle it once more, my recommendation. I'm not a huge prequels fan. I only got to enjoy Star Wars prequels when the expanded universe started, in my view, repairing a lot of gaping holes in that trilogy. When it started filling a lot of information and giving us context, like why the clones abandoned the Republic. Oh, because they had microchips, which was not the original idea. Nobody heard about this stuff until later on, where the expanded universe started elaborating that and reinforcing those ideas. And in my view, making them a lot more interesting. And I said to myself, you know what? I don't know about Count Dooku. He's not my favorite character. But hold on a second. I really enjoyed them in the Clone Wars television show. They really expanded them. The Count of Sereno, his countryman, his planet, and how he becomes the mentor to Asajj Ventress, and that relationship's there. I'm like, wow, they actually developed him into a full character. Let me see what's up with this book. I'll listen to it. Without exaggeration, guys, it was one of the most amazing Star Wars experience I've ever had. It is flawless, man. That radio drama / audiobook is just fantastic. It is so well written and performed by these immaculate voice actors. It's just, it puts you right in there. It feels like you're watching a Star Wars prequel movie that you've never seen before. It's really, really awesome. You got audiobooks like Shatterpoint from Matthew Stover, which is from older Star Wars legends. Also, one of the greatest Star Wars books. High Republic, Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Highly recommended. Fantastic audiobook. Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. X-Wing, Rogue Squadron by Michael Stackpole, which is also from Star Wars Legends. So guys, once you go to all of these platforms that offer audiobooks, I usually go to Amazon. That's the most convenient place for me to get them. The choices are infinite. If you feel that you can't read a Star Wars book and you don't have the time to check out the Star Wars comic books, but you do have the time to put a pair of headphones and enjoy some audio, I strongly encourage you to check out some Star Wars audiobooks. Once again, if you're not confident where to begin, if you don't know where to start, drop a comment in the video section below. Ask me like, hey Ben, what do you think is the good Star Wars audiobook for me to get into? I'll make sure I'll recommend something to you guys. Anyway, tip number 2. Let's keep it moving. Okay, I got everything here. Video games, guys. Yes, the world of Star Wars video games. There's simply too much stuff to check out, and you have literally no excuse not to play Star Wars games. If you remotely play video games, even if you don't have a console, you might use your smartphone devices. Like, you can have access to Star Wars video games anywhere and everywhere, literally. You could check out some classic stuff, like back in the day. If you still got your dusty old PlayStation or Xbox 360, Star Wars The Force Unleashed. I actually sold these, my original copies. I just got these back recently from Amazon from relatively decent price. Got them used and in perfect condition. You could check out some older stuff if you have retro console, older console. If you say, hey Ben, like, I'm not a video game collector, I only have the recent consoles. How come we didn't get any Star Wars games? We got very few of them from EA. Well, fret not, guys. My friends. Big shout out to Asper Media. They are porting one after the other some of the best classic Star Wars video games that I'm pretty sure you might remember from your earlier days, from your childhood. We'll talk about Fallen Order a little bit later. But you get the idea. Check this out. There's so many. And they come to multiple consoles too. Hold on a second. Let me show off my little collection here. You don't have to get them just if you have PlayStation. You get them digitally on any store, Xbox, Switch, PlayStation 4. Like I mentioned, smartphones. One of the best Star Wars retro games. Well, actually considered to be the greatest Star Wars game ever created, Knights of the Old Republic, is available on smartphones. Check out your App Store. Check out Google Store. I'm pretty sure it's there. Tons of retro stuff. We got a couple of recent titles which are few. I know this one has a lot of controversy. Oh, Battlefront, even though I think they made their second game a lot better with patches, with completely getting rid of microtransactions. This game came out and highly recommended by my younger brothers. He's like, hey, Ben, what are you doing, man? You love Star Wars and you don't want to play this game. I'm still struggling with it personally. Not everything is going to be for you guys. In this particular video game, I find the controls quite difficult for me because I don't play a lot of games from first-person view. I get confused. So what? You might check out some latest stuff. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This blew my mind. This one has, if I would to include Star Wars storytelling, anything outside of films, whether it's animated show, comic books, whether it's retro legend stuff or modern stuff, any Star Wars story and any Star Wars hero, this would be in the top 10, 100%. Cal Kestis, his journey to try to restore the Jedi Order, and at the end, a crazy encounter. I'm not going to spoil for those of you guys who didn't play it. That's also an excellent choice. Consoles are obviously not your only avenue. If you guys don't have a personal console at home, you have a school laptop, have your personal computer at home. Steam.com, or if you don't have Steam.com, GOG.com. Good old games, right? They constantly have sales. If once again, you're sitting at your table like, oh man, I'm counting days to May 25th. Where's that Kenobi? What's the latest rumor? And sometimes you go into like Facebook groups and you start getting at it with Star Wars fans because you're so agitated. You need your Star Wars fix, but you don't want to read. You don't want to listen to anything. Maybe you're a gamer. Star Wars video games. Guys, obviously Steam and GOG games give you a much wider range of Star Wars video games because they maintain the entire library of what came before. the Lucasfilm games of old, everything that they've, almost entire libraries of games, like the Shadows of the Empire, which was originally available on Nintendo 64. You'll find it there. The PlayStation 1 games, you can find them there. I'm not going to encourage or incite people to do this, but there's such concept as emulation. If you want to check out your favorite Star Wars games from like Super Nintendo or PlayStation 1, stuff like that, do a little bit of research there. There is a way to play those games on your computer as well. Again, it's not something that I encourage. I personally invest. I support my Star Wars franchise, but not everyone is on the same page as I am. Anyway, guys, this was tip number 3. Before we move on to my last point, I just have a quick bonus tip for you guys. You ready for this? Watch the 2 movies that inspired Star Wars directly, which we know for a fact, right? 1971, THX 1138, a movie by George Lucas. His first foray into science fiction. I thought it was a brilliant film when I saw it. It's something that I actually learned about when I was going to my film school and studying animation. And my professor brought it up. He's like, "Hey, Ben, I heard you're a Star Wars fan." And I said, "Yes, indeed I am." He said, "What do you think of the THX movie?" And I said, "What?" And my professor said, "Ben, you have not seen that movie, right?" I said, "No." "This is your homework assignment. Go check it out." I did. I went home. Granted, guys, it's not your AAA cinematic masterpiece or guns blazing sort of action film. It's very, very experimental. It's very psychological. There is a lot of visual storytelling, meaning you're not going to get a lot of text or dialogue. It's up to the viewer to look at the image and to see what the director, the filmmaker is telling you. Guys, I think it's a very important film for Star Wars fans to check out because as we're waiting for more Star Wars content to come in, it will give you an opportunity to look inside of George Lucas's mind, see how it worked, and see what inspired, what he channeled in his first sci-fi movie, and it slowly trickled into Star Wars universe. I mean, there's blogs, there's articles. I'm sure there's a lot of YouTube videos where a lot of people make the connections and show how some of the ideas translated into Star Wars. I am pretty sure you will take a look at some of the black outfits in that film and some of the helmets and say, aha, I see a similarity. And of course, when the Star Wars Visions show came out on Disney Plus, a lot of us old school Star Wars fans said, wow, oh my God, this is amazing. Star Wars is coming home. And a lot of fans were confused, like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Well, a lot of us know that Star Wars has been inspired by Asian cinema, specifically Japanese samurai films. Why? Because George Lucas, right, he grew up on the American base in Japan. He was heavily influenced by Japanese culture and by the films of Akira Kurosawa. The name that is completely and wholesomely dropped in every film school. Anybody who remotely wants to understand the history of film, they understand filmmaking techniques, stuff like this, Akira Kurosawa's name constantly comes to mind. He's a global phenomenon. Everybody studies his films to this day. 1958, The Hidden Fortress. How do we know it inspired Star Wars? Well, because in that conference room in A New Hope, well, all the Moffs are sitting there and Darth Vader is choking Admiral Mahdi. He says, "Find their hidden fortress." And he doesn't say it completely because it's obviously an Easter egg that George Lucas throws out there to show the fans who are in the know that, yes, I'm a disciple of, I'm encouraged by the filmmaking of Akira Kurosawa. How else do we know this? Well, you could check out the famous photo of both George Lucas and Steven Spielberg standing on the set next to Akira Kurosawa as he's shooting his film. So it's obvious that the George Lucas was inspired by it. It was actually people who write the making of the original trilogy books, documenting the process, also talk about how George Lucas directly was inspired by characters in the Hidden Fortress film, specifically the 2 Ronin samurai, the 2 refugees standing there in the first chapters on the film, which are basically translated into R2-D2 and C-3PO. You want to learn for yourself? You want to find out for sure that Asian films, samurai films have inspired Star Wars? If you're that kind of person who likes to go outside and explore other things, I strongly encourage you to check out both THX 1138 and The Hidden Fortress. These 2 movies will be an interesting interim. It'll be an interesting time for you to say, okay, Let's wait for the new Star Wars content. In the meantime, I'm just going to educate myself as a fan and see where it all came from. Anyway, here is my last tip. Sometimes we hit that period where we feel oversaturated with too much Star Wars. I understand it, guys. I'm sometimes there as well. I'm still catching up on my Star Wars The High Republic reading. I don't feel like just chugging through those books just so I could throw my review out there on YouTube and say I'm done with this book, I'm reading it. I want to fully enjoy my Star Wars content. So when I'm not in the mood, when I don't feel like doing it, you know what I do? This is going to sound a little bit blasphemous, but I think it's a very healthy and good thing for Star Wars fans to do, to explore other franchises. For many of us who grew up with Star Wars and think this is the cream of the crop, this is the greatest IP, intellectual property or franchise that ever was, well, let's do a little bit of homework. Edgar Rice Burroughs, the John Carter of Mars Chronicle, The Martian Tales, right? The movie adaptation that Disney tried to do several years ago, which I felt was completely unsuccessful. It didn't represent these books at all. At one point in time, the only book that was more read in the entire world than these books was the Holy Bible. I kid you not, guys. Go Wikipedia it, go Google it. Edgar Rice Burroughs was the man. Him and perhaps Jules Verne and several others, H.P. Lovecraft, were considered the forefathers, progenitors of science fiction in general. When you read the John Carter of Mars, I actually brought it up in one of my previous videos where I was comparing Star Wars to Dune and see where the influences and inspirations came into Star Wars. You will definitely, after reading the original book, there's over 11 books actually in this series. I read the first 6. After you read the first book, The Princess of Mars, there will be no shadow of a doubt, guys, that this book has directly influenced Star Wars. And it's something good for you to do. It's like, hey, if I thought that everything revolves around Star Wars is the thing, there's other material out there. There's a lot of science fiction there, which in its day was prominent around the world. This actually, John Carter Chronicles, is still revered by millions of fans around the world. It is translated virtually into every language in the world, at least every major language. Anyway, there's just an opening shot I remember in that scene where John Carter ends up on Mars, and just the landscape and the way that he encounters aliens there and the whole strife and struggle between the two factions that begins there, and the barges that sail through the air on the surface of Mars, the Jabba's barge, Return of the Jedi. You start putting the pieces together like, oh my God, man, this is amazing. This makes you even into more of a Star Wars fan. Let's say there's other material you want to check out. This is obviously not the only franchise I prepared for you guys. Dungeons and Dragons. Gary Gygax, right? The guy who is basically single-handedly responsible for the pen and paper, RPG, tabletop, role-playing games, roll the dice, all of that stuff. Why do I bring this up? Well, guess what, guys? Because actually, Knights of the Old Republic BioWare video games follow the Dungeons and Dragons rule sets. That's right. When you create your character in the beginning of the game, you're like, hey, you know what? I want to figure out what stats I'm going to be, what I'm going to do with this character, what kind of creatures and monsters are we going to fight, and the dungeon is going to be so and so. Well, Gary Gygax, let me actually open up a different... This is one of my favorite books that I own, guys. This is completely fantastic. Rest assured, guys at BioWare talk about Dungeons and Dragons without end. Obviously, they're the ones also responsible for Baldur's Games 1 and 2, which are revered by Dungeons and Dragons fans. They're considered some of the best D&D games ever created. And this franchise has also inspired Star Wars video gaming. I don't think we would have Knights of the Old Republic in the same shape or form, at least, if we didn't have Dungeons and Dragons, which came out obviously much, much earlier in the late 60s, 65, 67, so forth. What other franchises you might check out? Dune. Frank Herbert's Dune. It's something I made a video about. I was comparing, actually. I finished the first book, and I'm now on the second one called Dune Messiah, right? We all saw the first chapter of the book in the movie that came out, which blew a lot of people away. Check out the books. Once again, Frank Herbert was like, when he was asking in an interview, do you think that George Lucas kind of ripped off your Dune series? He's like, well, not maybe entirely ripped off, but it would be nice if you bought me lunch. It was a pretty funny interview, but he kind of nods and he shows you that basically a lot of stuff that was here in this original book informs and influences Star Wars. Once again, I've been talking about books here, but if it's something that you're just not into, you don't want to read stuff, you don't want to be all about those books, check out some video games. Once again, we're returning to BioWare, but again, a video game series which has entirely spawned from the love of the developers for the Star Wars franchise. To this day, it's really, really hard for me to find any science fiction world within the video games that is as similar to Star Wars as Mass Effect series. I'm sure many of you heard about the name. I'm sure a lot of you guys played it before. If you're the type of fans that played only Andromeda video game, which is the latest one, I encourage you to play the original trilogy. Again, a lot of these video games you can find, Amazon sometimes slashes the prices, they have them cheap. You can buy it used on eBay or your local game shop. You don't have to necessarily spend a tons of money to enjoy your Star Wars however you want. Even Japanese video games are influenced by Star Wars. Final Fantasy XII opening cinematic. A lot of fans, I remember when it came out originally on PlayStation 2, I ran to the store, which was right across my street, and I picked up this video game. The moment I saw that CGI opening sequence, you guys could check it out on YouTube, obviously, playthroughs or just a video montage. And the next day I ran to my high school. Guess what we were talking about? Dude, did you see Final Fantasy XII intro? It's like Star Wars, right? Everybody was talking about it. And it actually goes beyond that. The main hero, Vaughn, the whole ragtag team of rebels who fight the evil empire and have access to spaceships. And if we interpret the Force sort of kind of like supernatural magical power, this has plenty of it too. There's video games out there, once again, that are influenced by Star Wars. They feel like Star Wars, but there's something different. Why did I go with this last point? You might ask and say, hey, Ben, but that's not related to Star Wars. I think that's a good thing to do. That's exactly the right thing to do when you're exhausted with your Star Wars material, when you just had enough, or you might even had a slight disappointment. You were expecting A from Star Wars, The Book of Boba Fett, and they delivered B. It just wasn't what you expected it to be, or it wasn't on par aesthetically or in terms of quality you expected. Instead of feeling down and going to the route of like feeling angry about stuff, the way it didn't go that it is, or feeling like, oh man, that's it, I'm done with Star Wars, I had enough, check out something else. For me, it constantly turns me back to Star Wars. It constantly reinvigorates my interest and my enthusiasm about Star Wars. This in particular, after I read the John Carter of Mars books, man, I went back hard in Star Wars. I'm like, you know what? I'm rewatching the Clone Wars. I'm rewatching the Rebels. I'm going to rewatch tons of stuff right now. Anyway, guys, I hope my 4 tips helped you out. Please leave a comment in the video section below. Let me know how eagerly you're anticipating Kenobi. What do you expect of this show? What do you guys do in between? What are your favorite activities or pastime, related or not related to Star Wars, that you enjoy doing? I would love to hear about this. And once again, if you guys are the ones who have questions like, hey, well, Ben just gave me all of these recommendations. Oh my God, but where do I begin? Where do I start? Whether it's a video game, whether it's an audiobook, or whether it's a novel or comic, trust me, just drop me a question in this video section. I will try my best. I don't have gazillion followers just yet. I'm sure I'll be able to respond to everybody and give you 1 or 2 pointers and let you know where is a good spot for you guys to begin. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all of your support, all of your kind comments. Please consider subscribing, like this video, and I'll see you guys next time.